Hello, in this new video we are going to be showing you something which is probably the holy grail of the TVOV service, which is combining linear and non-linear. So everything put together, everything is watched on traditional TV and putting together with everything that is viewed on online services. Okay, so we're going to start a new template, and you may remember that when we looked at reports there was something called contents. This will show us everything coming from video on demand standalone. We obviously have the programs analysis, which is the one that you've traditionally been using to start looking at contents coming from linear, and the idea would now be to start combining them put together. So what we're going to be doing is this first exercise. I'm going to be leaving all the targets, dates just on the last date and standard time bands, but I'm going to start looking at the channels. I could be running with every single channel in the service, but just to make it quicker, I'm going to choose one online channel and equivalent linear channel. Okay, again, you can run with any other examples. But if you want to start combining, you need at least a linear and at least a non-linear one. Same thing with activities. By default, the selection is consolidated PV 7 days. So I'm going to be keeping that one, but I'm also going to be adding VOD to start looking at how much is done on one or the other. And I could be also looking at the total one. So it's consolidated 7 days plus video on demand. So everything put together. And finally, I'm going to start looking at the units. You could be running any metrics, the standard ratings, the reach, but in this particular example, I would like to start focusing on the number of minutes viewed. I don't really worry too much here what is going to be the rating, which is based on duration. I'm only going to be looking at the minutes viewed. And finally, in the reports, you just basically need to combine everything on programs. Don't worry about the contents. The combination of linear and non-linear is now based on programs. As you click in here, you will see a new checkbox which says non-linear content. If you leave it unchecked, which is the default one, it means that the system would only run on linear, regardless of anything you could have selected in terms of the activities or the channels. But I'm interested, of course, in combining them, so I'm going to be looking at the non-linear content. This is what I'm going to be doing initially, so I'm going to be looking at calculate. The system goes to the database and then finally gives me the total number of minutes. And you can see that there are 3 different activities, which are the ones that I've chosen, but I'm going to be putting them inside the system. Okay, we're going to be making this a little bit bigger so we can read consolidated PV 7 days, video on demand, and the PV 7 days plus video on demand. You will see that for NRK1, which is a linear one, you only have the first activity, nothing on VOD. And as I move this down, I start seeing NRK TV online and all the content that was viewed on this last day that I've chosen, which is the 28th of February. And you can see there's many content here, because obviously people can be viewing any type of available programs on the online services. Now this is standalone again, so we are combining the standard programs together with the VOD contents one. We're still not combining really them into a single figure. How do you do this? You simply go back to reports, and apart from making sure they have the non-linear content, there's another option here, which is the aggregation. Again, by default, that would be no. Again, meaning that we're going to be splitting them. But then if you click in here, you have 2 other options. The first one, we're probably not going to be using this very often, but what it does is combine the on-demand content. So the same type of program with the same title coming from different online sources would be put together, but you're still keeping the linear as a separate one. The one I'm really interested in looking at is the second one, which is combining both on-demand and linear programs. This is the one that we're probably going to be using more often. So just clicking here, and you will see something you don't need to pay too much attention, which is the aggregation attributes. This is the link, the hook that the system uses to combine the 2 types of contents. This specific ID is one key that we have in the linear programs, and it's the same key that broadcasters use in the metadata, so the system knows that the content that was viewed online corresponds to an equivalent content that was transmitted linear. Okay, don't worry about this one, it's just for you to know where it is. So next thing we'll do is just calculate, and what the system will now do is start linking by this particular ID that I mentioned to you, the content ID, and then it will give you the final results. You can see that some programs, they only have transmission on linear, some programs only have transmission on VOD, and some programs have transmission on both of them. So I'm going to be sorting descending by the total one. And what information can you get from here? There's a news program on NIK, originally transmitted on the 28th between 18:59:53 and 19:44:12. The total number of minutes viewed on linear, so this adds live plus playback postal plus playback up to 7 days, is this figure here. But then there were a few minutes viewed on the on-demand service, and then you get finally what is the total figure you get for that. We can see some other contents have much more video on demand content. Of course, if you wanted to start looking at what is the highest one, you just go descending by video on demand. In some cases there was also viewing for linear, in some cases this content was only viewed online. Okay, it's as simple as doing what I mentioned to you. You also have to remember that we keep the same features that we mentioned before. So if you just right click on any of these contents, you still have the possibility of running from here the minute by minute information. So what is the offset of the linear and the non-linear, and also trying to understand when was the linear and non-linear being watched. This is exactly the same sort of functionality you had before. Okay, so this is the way in which you should be using the combination of figures when you really want to get the consolidated figure with absolutely everything viewed on both types of services. If you wanted, and you were running this analysis only on, for example, VOD, then this will be equivalent to running only the online channels. So this is the same thing that if you had selected in the report the content one. We just keep it there for compatibility, and in case any user wants to run something very, very quickly only on demand. We also have, again, the possibility of running only on linear, but when you want to combine, just remember its own programs. You need to make sure that you're adding the non-linear, and if you want to put them together, you need to remember to aggregate the contents. Okay? This is how you do it if you want to do it from scratch. And as I mentioned in other videos, we have also created presets, so predefined sets of reports where you can only with a few clicks get everything already set up for you. And this is what I'm going to be explaining in next video.